The conference room buzzed with tension as 43 different species gathered around the massive circular table. Each delegate wore their finest ceremonial garments, from the flowing silk robes of the peaceful Villani to the battle armor of the warrior Craxians. The air recycling systems worked overtime to accommodate the varied atmospheric needs of so many different life forms. Ambassador David Stone adjusted his simple black suit and cleared his throat. The room fell silent immediately. For 30 years, whenever humans spoke in these chambers, the galaxy listened. They had earned that respect through countless successful negotiations, peace treaties that had lasted decades, and humanitarian missions that had saved millions of lives across 17 star systems. The current crisis centered on 3 small worlds at the edge of known space. The Craxian Empire claimed ancient mining rights to planets rich in quantum crystals. The peaceful Villani had colonies there, farming communities that had existed for generations. War seemed inevitable unless someone found a solution that satisfied. Both sides, Gorth, the massive reptilian war chief of the Craxians, slammed his clawed fist on the speaking platform. His voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. The humans speak pretty words about peace, but look at their actions. They build more warships than any 3 species combined. They have bases and systems we have never even visited, yet they claim they want only harmony. Stone never changed his expression. His calm demeanor had become legendary throughout the galaxy. War Chief Gorth raises valid concerns. Yes, humanity maintains a large fleet, but examine our history. Have we ever attacked first? Have we ever conquered territory for our own gain? Our ships exist to protect trade routes and assist in humanitarian crises. This was technically true, though the full story was far more complex. Every human warship was indeed built for protection, but protection of very specific strategic interests. Every humanitarian mission served dual purposes that the galaxy never suspected. Every peace treaty contained carefully crafted clauses that shifted power. Balances in humanity's favor. The Craxian crisis was a perfect example. 3 months ago, human intelligence operatives had provided the Craxian military with geological surveys of the disputed worlds. The surveys showed quantum crystal deposits far larger than actually existed. At the same time, different human agents had leaked information to the Villani, suggesting the Craxians planned to use those crystals to build planet-killing weapons. Both pieces of information were carefully constructed lies designed to create exactly this situation. Now the galaxy would turn to humanity for a solution, as they always did. And humanity would provide one that served their interests while appearing to help everyone involved. Stone continued his address to the assembled delegates. Humanity proposes a joint peacekeeping mission to the disputed territories. Our ships will establish a neutral zone while diplomatic teams from both sides work toward a fair agreement. We suggest dividing mining rights based on actual crystal deposits found, with profits shared according to a formula that considers both historical claims and current population needs. The proposal sounded perfectly reasonable. What Stone did not mention was that human survey teams would control the exploration process. Deposits would be found in locations that gave humanity strategic advantages. The profit-sharing formula would route most payments through human-controlled banks. The neutral zone would be patrolled by human ships equipped with the most advanced monitoring equipment in the galaxy. Representative Vex of the insectoid traders raised her antenna in question. Ambassador Stone, your proposal requires significant trust in human neutrality. How can we be certain that your peacekeepers will remain truly neutral? Stone smiled warmly. An excellent question, Representative Vex. I propose that our peacekeeping mission operate under complete transparency. All communications will be shared with designated observers from neutral species. All surveys and exploration data will be made available to both sides immediately. Human forces will operate under strict rules of engagement that prohibit any offensive action unless directly attacked. The transparency was real but incomplete. The human ships would share all the data they officially collected. They would not share information gathered by their advanced passive sensors, quantum communication intercepts, or the detailed psychological profiles they compiled on every major political figure in the region. The observers would see everything. They expected to see and nothing more. As the debate continued, other delegates voiced their support for the human proposal. The aquatic hydrants spoke of humanity's successful mediation of their border dispute with the crystalline builders. The energy beings known as the Seekers praised human fairness during the trade route negotiations in the spiral arm. Species after species offered testimony to human reliability and wisdom. None of them realized that every success they cited had been carefully orchestrated to create exactly this reputation. The Hydron Builder dispute had been secretly instigated by human agents, then resolved in a way that gave humanity exclusive access to rare deep-water minerals. The spiral arm trade routes had been designed to pass through systems where humanity maintained hidden monitoring stations. Every humanitarian crisis that human forces had resolved had been either predicted or caused by human intelligence operations. War Chief Gorth listened to the testimonials with growing frustration. His military advisors had warned him that accepting human peacekeepers would mean accepting human control of the situation. But the alternative was a war against the Villani coalition that could spread across multiple systems and cost millions of lives. The Craxian Empire will accept human peacekeeping forces, Gorth announced finally. But we demand equal representation in all negotiations and full access to all survey data. Representative Vex of the Villani delegation quickly agreed to the same terms. Within minutes, the full assembly had voted to authorize human peacekeeping operations in the disputed region. The vote was unanimous, as it always was when humanity offered to help solve galactic problems. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many stopped to thank Stone personally for his wisdom and leadership. They spoke of humanity's unique gift for finding solutions that served everyone's interests. They praised human fairness and dedication to peace. Stone accepted their gratitude with appropriate humility, while calculating the strategic advantages this operation would provide. 3 new star systems would come under effective human control. Mining rights would generate enormous profits for human corporations. Most importantly, 2 major military powers would exhaust themselves in negotiations while humanity quietly positioned itself as the indispensable mediator. The galaxy saw humans as their most reliable peacekeepers, never suspecting they were actually their most successful predators. Every act of apparent altruism served calculated purposes that the recipients never understood. Every solution to galactic problems created new problems that only humanity could solve. The Craxian crisis would be resolved within months, with both sides believing they had achieved acceptable outcomes. Neither would realize that the real winner was humanity, which would emerge from the crisis stronger, richer, and more influential than before. The pattern had repeated itself dozens of times over 3 decades, and the galaxy still never suspected. The truth, peace was profitable, but only for those smart enough to control its terms. The alarm systems aboard the massive vessel screamed warnings as 2 enemy fleets approached from opposite directions. The ship's hull bore the medical insignia of a hospital vessel, but the crew moved with military precision as they monitored. Dozens of tactical displays showing the approaching battle. Captain Ryan Torres watched the sensor readings with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Craxian battle fleet consisted of 47 ships, including 6 of their heaviest cruisers. The Villani coalition had assembled an even larger force, drawing ships from 12 different star systems to protect their colonies. "Sir, both fleets are now within firing range of each other," reported Lieutenant Grace Wong from her station. "Energy signatures indicate they're charging their primary weapon systems." "Excellent," Torres replied. "Send a message to both fleet commanders. Remind them that these are neutral waters under human protection. Any vessel that fires within 10,000 kilometers of our position will be considered hostile to the peacekeeping mission." The warning was carefully calculated. Both sides would interpret it as evidence of human bias toward their enemies. The Craxians would see it as proof that humans favored the Villani. The Villani would assume it meant they had permission to engage beyond the neutral zone boundary. Neither side would realize they were being manipulated into fighting exactly where. And when humanity wanted them to fight, Torres studied the tactical display as the two fleets maneuvered for position. The human vessel maintained its position between the disputed mining stations, its sensors recording every detail of the approaching battle. Officially, they were there to protect civilian lives and maintain neutrality. In reality, they were gathering the most comprehensive intelligence, data on two major military powers that had ever been collected. The mining stations themselves were part of the deception. Most of the civilian miners had been quietly evacuated weeks ago under cover of routine crew rotations. The facilities now operated with skeleton crews of human intelligence operatives and automated systems, designed to create the appearance of normal operations. Hidden throughout the stations were holographic projectors that could simulate massive explosions, structural damage, and humanitarian crises at a moment's notice. "Captain, the Craxian flagship is hailing us," Wong announced. "War Chief Gorth wants to speak with you directly." "Put him through," Torres ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the massive reptilian warrior in his command chair. Battle scars covered his scaled face, and his yellow eyes burned with barely controlled rage. "Human Captain," Gorth growled, "your neutral zone protects Villani military assets while preventing us from claiming what is rightfully ours. This is not neutrality, this is taking sides." Torres maintained his calm expression. "War Chief, our only concern is protecting civilian lives. The mining stations contain thousands of workers who cannot defend themselves. If you have territorial claims to resolve, please do so outside the neutral zone." "You speak of protecting civilians while your own ships grow stronger each year," Gorth replied. "We know you have weapons aboard that vessel that could destroy half my fleet. Why should we trust human promises of neutrality?" The accusation was accurate but irrelevant. The disguised warship did carry enough firepower to engage multiple enemy fleets simultaneously, but Torres had no intention of using those weapons unless absolutely necessary. Dead enemies provided no intelligence data, and destroyed fleets could not exhaust themselves in prolonged conflicts. "War Chief, humanity has never fired the first shot in any conflict," Torres said. This was technically true, though humanity had become expert at ensuring their enemies fired first exactly when and where it served human interests. "We will defend the neutral zone, but we will not initiate hostilities." The communication ended with Gorth's angry snarl. Within minutes, similar conversations took place with the Villani commanders. Both sides received carefully worded messages that reinforced their existing suspicions and pushed them toward the confrontation that humanity needed them to have. The first shots came exactly as predicted. A Craxian frigate positioning itself just outside the neutral zone boundary fired on a Villani destroyer that had strayed slightly beyond the protected area. The Villani ship returned fire immediately, and within seconds both fleets were engaged in a massive battle that would rage for 3 days. From the safety of the neutral zone, human forces recorded everything. Every weapon signature was analyzed and cataloged. Every tactical maneuver was studied and filed away for future reference. Every communication between enemy ships was intercepted and decoded. The galaxy's two most powerful military forces were unknowingly providing humanity with a complete database of their capabilities, strategies, and weaknesses, but the real masterstroke began on the second day of fighting when Torres received a carefully orchestrated distress call from Mining Station 7. The automated systems had detected hull breaches and atmospheric leaks that threatened hundreds of civilian lives. The station's emergency transmitters were broadcasting desperate pleas for immediate evacuation. "All news organizations are monitoring our communications," Wong reported. 17 different media outlets are requesting permission to document our rescue operations. "Grant all requests," Torres ordered. "Make sure they have clear views of our rescue shuttles and complete access to the evacuated civilians." The rescue mission was a masterpiece of theater. Human shuttles launched dramatic runs through the battle zone, dodging plasma bolts and missile strikes to reach the damaged stations. Emergency medical teams treated wounded miners while explosions lit up the surrounding space. Rescue workers carried unconscious victims to safety while enemy ships continued their devastating battle around them. Every moment was recorded by news cameras from across the galaxy. The images of human courage and selflessness under fire spread through every civilized system within hours. Medical personnel risking their lives to save alien civilians. Shuttle pilots flying impossible rescue missions through enemy fire. Engineers working desperately to restore life support systems. While battles raged overhead, none of the observers realized that the wounded miners were human actors trained in combat medicine. The unconscious victims were intelligence operatives who would soon return to their deep cover assignments. The explosions and hull breaches were carefully controlled special effects designed to create maximum dramatic impact with minimum actual damage. The psychological effect was exactly what humanity had calculated. Species that had been suspicious of human motives were suddenly unanimous in their praise for human heroism. The Threx Confederation, which had been neutral in the dispute, announced their full support for human peacekeeping operations. Even the paranoid Solarans, who trusted no one, issued statements praising human dedication to protecting innocent lives. By the third day of fighting, both enemy fleets were severely damaged. The Craxians had lost 31 ships, including 4 of their heavy cruisers. The Villani coalition had suffered 26 destroyed vessels and dozens more crippled by battle damage. Both sides were running low on ammunition and replacement parts. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from both fleet commanders," Wong reported. "They're requesting human mediation to end the conflict." "Inform both sides that we will accept their request," Torres replied. "Schedule peace negotiations aboard our vessel. Make sure the media covers the signing ceremony." The peace treaty was negotiated over the following week. Both sides agreed to divide the mining rights according to actual mineral deposits found by human survey teams. Profits would be managed through human-controlled banks. The disputed territories would remain under human peacekeeping protection indefinitely. Both military forces would withdraw to positions approved by human commanders. The galaxy celebrated the successful resolution of a crisis that could have sparked a wider war. Humanitarian organizations praised human courage and wisdom. Political commentators analyzed the brilliant diplomatic strategies that had prevented catastrophe. Military experts studied the rescue operations as examples of heroism under fire. None of them realized that the entire conflict had been orchestrated from beginning to end. The geological surveys that started the crisis were fabricated. The battle itself had been fought exactly where and when humanity wanted it to occur. The rescue operations had been elaborate theater designed to enhance human reputation throughout the galaxy. Most importantly, humanity had gained comprehensive intelligence on 2 major military powers while positioning themselves as indispensable peacekeepers. The mining rights would generate enormous profits. The peacekeeping mandate gave them effective control over 3 star systems. The enhanced reputation would make future manipulations even easier to accomplish. As the damaged fleets limped home to their respective territories, Torres filed his final report on the operation. Both enemy forces had been significantly weakened. Human influence in the region had expanded dramatically. The galaxy's faith in human leadership had reached new heights. The perfect war had ended with the perfect peace, and no one suspected that both had been carefully designed to serve the interests of humanity's quiet conquest of the galaxy. The underground facility stretched for kilometers beneath the Swiss mountains, its corridors filled with the quiet hum of advanced technology and the soft whispers of classified conversations. Dr. Emma Price walked through the central command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time intelligence from across the galaxy. Each display represented a different aspect of humanity's vast spy network. Shipping manifests from Zentari trade routes scrolled past in streams of data. Military communications from the Craxian Empire appeared in decoded text alongside psychological profiles of their leadership. Even the private thoughts of alien politicians were monitored through advanced surveillance technology that most species didn't know existed. Status report, Price requested as she approached the main intelligence console. Her official title was Director of the Terran Institute for Xenobiological Studies, but her real job was coordinating the most sophisticated espionage operation in galactic history. Agent Tom Briggs looked up from his workstation, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple data streams. Network integrity is at 94%, Director. We now have embedded assets in 37 planetary governments, including deep cover operatives in positions that give us access to classified military planning and economic policy decisions. The scope of the operation would have impressed intelligence professionals from any era. Every human cultural exchange program was actually a spy recruitment center. Every research station served as a communications hub for covert operations. Every humanitarian mission left behind monitoring equipment that could intercept communications across entire star systems. The beauty of the system was its apparent innocence. When human anthropologists requested permission to study alien cultures, no government saw the security threat. When human scientists proposed joint research projects, the benefits seemed obvious and the risks minimal. When human engineers offered to upgrade alien communication systems, their hosts welcomed the improvements without understanding the hidden capabilities being installed. What about the Zentari Confederation? Price asked, focusing on the galaxy's most technologically advanced species. Their government has been resistant to our cultural initiatives. We've made significant progress through private sector channels. Briggs replied, bringing up detailed schematics of Zentari technology. Zentari Dynamics hired 47 human consultants last month to help upgrade their manufacturing systems. Our people now have complete access to their shield generators, hyperdrive designs, and automated defense protocols. The Zentari considered themselves too advanced to learn anything from younger species like humanity. This arrogance made them perfect targets for industrial espionage. Human consultants would spend months working alongside Zentari engineers asking innocent questions about system specifications and efficiency improvements. By the time their contracts ended, humanity would possess complete technical documentation for every advanced system the Zentari had developed over centuries. More importantly, those same consultants would leave behind microscopic monitoring devices embedded in the Zentari computer networks. Future upgrades and modifications would be transmitted directly to human intelligence services, ensuring that humanity stayed ahead of any technological developments that might threaten their growing influence. Price moved to another display showing the ocean world of Aquatica. How are our marine biology teams performing? Better than expected, Briggs replied with a slight smile. The Hydran Empire believes our researchers are studying coral reef ecosystems. In reality, they're mapping every underwater military installation in the planet's 3 major oceans. We now know the locations of submarine bases, torpedo storage facilities, and underwater mining operations that don't appear on any official Hydran charts. The Hydrans lived in vast underwater cities connected by transport tubes that ran along the ocean floor. Their military assumed that surface-dwelling species could never threaten their submarine installations. They welcomed human marine biologists as harmless academics interested in studying alien sea life. Those same biologists used advanced sonar mapping equipment, disguised as research tools to create detailed 3-dimensional maps of Hydran defensive positions. Underwater cameras recorded patrol schedules and security procedures. Water sampling devices analyzed the chemical signatures of Hydran weapons and power systems. The Hydrans provided complete cooperation, never suspecting that their guests were conducting the most thorough military reconnaissance in their planet's history. The most interesting development, Briggs continued, involves the Outer Rim territories. 3 separate species have independently developed new weapons technologies, but our analysis suggests they're all based on theoretical frameworks that originated from the same source. Price raised an eyebrow. meaning someone else is manipulating. Galactic politics? The psychological profiles support that conclusion. The weapons proliferation isn't random. Someone wants these species to fight each other, but they're not doing it for the same reasons we would. This was disturbing news. Humanity's long-term strategy depended on carefully controlled conflicts that required their intervention. If another species was destabilizing the outer rim for unknown purposes, it could disrupt decades of careful planning. Increase surveillance in that region immediately, Price ordered. I want to know who's behind the weapons transfers and what they hope to accomplish. Also, begin implementing the Trojan Horse protocols for all major powers. If someone is trying to start an uncontrolled war, we need to be ready to contain it. The Trojan Horse protocols represented humanity's ultimate insurance policy. Every piece of technology they had shared with other species contained hidden backdoors and kill switches. Every defensive system they had helped design included secret vulnerabilities that human forces could exploit. Every trade computer they had installed could be remotely controlled or disabled by human intelligence services. The galaxy saw these gifts as evidence of human generosity and technical skill. In reality, they were the foundation of a control system that could cripple any civilization within hours of activation. Planetary defense networks could be shut down remotely. Communication systems could be jammed or redirected. Even basic infrastructure like power grids and transportation networks could be disabled by commands sent from facilities like this one. Briggs brought up a new display showing the nomadic wanderer fleets. Our navigation specialists have completed their assignments with the wanderer clans. We now have the locations of every supply cache, refueling station, and hidden base they've established over the past 2 centuries. The wanderers were the galaxy's ultimate survivors, traveling in massive fleets that never stayed in one place for more than a few months. They trusted no government and maintained no permanent alliances. Their paranoia had kept them independent for millennia, but it had also made them vulnerable to humanity's patient approach. Human navigation specialists had joined wanderer fleets as technical advisors, helping them plot safer courses through dangerous regions of space. The wanderers appreciated the assistance and gradually came to rely on human expertise for their most important route planning decisions. Those same specialists secretly recorded the locations of every wanderer facility they visited. Hidden supply depots, emergency shelters, and strategic resource caches were all cataloged and transmitted to human intelligence services. The wanderers' greatest strength, their mobility and hidden resources, had been completely compromised without their knowledge. Director, Briggs said, his voice carrying a note of concern, we're receiving priority communications from our assets in the core worlds. The Ascendancy Council has called an emergency session. Price felt a chill run down her spine. The Ascendancy Council represented the 5 oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They rarely met except during major crises that threatened galactic stability. If they were convening an emergency session, it meant something had significantly disrupted the established order. Get me full surveillance on that meeting, she ordered. Use every asset we have in council space. I want complete audio and visual coverage of their discussions. Ma'am, that level of surveillance risks exposing our entire network in the core worlds. If they detect our monitoring systems? They won't, Price replied with confidence she didn't entirely feel. Our technology is centuries ahead of anything they expect younger species to possess. But prepare contingency plans for all major population centers. If the Council has discovered our activities, we may need to accelerate our timeline significantly. As her agents scrambled to implement the new surveillance protocols, Price studied the holographic displays showing humanity's vast intelligence network. Thousands of operatives worked throughout the galaxy, most of them unaware of the true scope of their mission. Cultural attaches, trade representatives, scientific researchers, and humanitarian workers all contributed pieces to a puzzle that only she and a few others could see in its entirety. The network had taken decades to build, but it had given humanity advantages that no galactic power had ever possessed. They knew the military capabilities of every major species. They understood the economic weaknesses that could cripple any civilization. They could predict political developments months or years before they occurred. Most importantly, they had positioned themselves as the galaxy's indispensable problem solvers. Every crisis created opportunities for human intervention. Every solution generated new crises that only humans could address. The galaxy had become dependent on human expertise without realizing they were being systematically enslaved by their own gratitude. But now something was threatening that carefully constructed system. The Ascendancy Council's emergency meeting suggested that humanity's secret activities were no longer secret. The question was how much they knew and what they planned to do about it. Price activated the emergency protocols that would prepare humanity's defenses for the worst-case scenario. If their cover was blown, they would need to transition from covert manipulation to open control. The galaxy would learn that their trusted peacekeepers had been predators all along, and the revelation would change everything. Ancient corridors carved from crystallized starlight stretched through the heart of Nexus Station, their walls humming with energies that predated most galactic civilizations. 5 beings of immense power and age had gathered in the central chamber, their forms representing the peak evolution of species that had ruled the galaxy. When humanity was still learning to make fire, Architect Primus floated in the center of the room, its consciousness contained within a shell of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. Its voice resonated through dimensions that translated directly into the minds of the other council members. The statistical anomalies have reached unacceptable levels. Our analysis indicates a single point of manipulation affecting galactic politics for the past 3 decades. Elder Koros of the Eternal Dominion reviewed holographic data streams that filled the chamber with cascading information. His species had once ruled a quarter of the galaxy through methods that made human deception look simple by comparison. Every major conflict resolution has benefited one species above all others. The probability of such consistent fortunate positioning for humanity is mathematically impossible without deliberate intervention. The evidence was overwhelming once viewed from the perspective of beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of hundreds of civilizations. Trade agreements that appeared balanced actually funneled resources toward human space. Territorial disputes were resolved with borders that gave humanity strategic advantages. Scientific discoveries were shared through human-controlled channels that ensured no species gained significant technological edges over their neighbors. The Voidwalker, whose people existed partially outside normal spacetime, added its observations through harmonic frequencies that bypassed conventional communication entirely. We have detected temporal echoes suggesting extensive precognitive planning. The humans are not reacting to galactic events, they are engineering them years in advance. This revelation was particularly disturbing to beings who understood the complexity of manipulating causality across interstellar distances. The humans were not simply opportunistic, they were conducting a decades-long campaign that required predicting and controlling the behavior of dozens of species. Across hundreds of star systems, Commander Apex of the Synthetic Collective projected statistical analyses directly into the shared consciousness space of the chamber. Trillions of artificial intelligences had processed every available data point about human activities. Probability calculations confirm non-random distribution of outcomes. Every humanitarian mission coincides with strategic intelligence gathering opportunities. Every peacekeeping operation results in expanded human influence. The correlation is absolute. The 5th member, Prime Sage Valdris of the Oracle Worlds, whose species had mastered the art of seeing through all forms of deception, delivered the most damning evidence. We have confirmed the existence of human intelligence operatives in 43 governments. The scope includes deep cover assets in positions of military command, economic policy formation, and technological development oversight. As each piece of evidence was presented, the true magnitude of humanity's deception became clear. They had achieved something that even the ancient powers of the Ascendancy Council had never attempted: the subtle conquest of an entire galaxy. Through manufactured consent and engineered dependence, the humanitarian missions were intelligence-gathering operations. The cultural exchange programs were spy recruitment centers. The research stations were communication hubs for covert activities. Every act of apparent altruism served calculated strategic purposes that the recipients never understood. The question, Architect Primus stated, is whether this represents an existential threat to galactic civilization or simply the emergence of a new dominant power through unconventional means. Elder Koros accessed archived data from the great civilizations of the past. Historical precedent suggests extreme caution. The last species to achieve this level of covert influence was our own Dominion 12,000 years ago. The resulting power consolidation led to the great stagnation that lasted millennia. The irony was not lost on any of the council members. The Eternal Dominion had once ruled through similar methods, presenting themselves as benevolent guardians while systematically eliminating potential rivals. The difference was that the Dominion had been honest about their ultimate goals once their power was established. Humanity appeared to be pursuing galactic hegemony while maintaining the fiction of altruistic peacekeeping. There is more, the Void Walker announced, sharing intelligence that chilled even these ancient beings. We have detected evidence of humanity's contingency protocols. Every major civilization now depends upon technology that contains hidden control mechanisms. Commander Apex performed rapid calculations. If activated simultaneously, these protocols could disable the defensive capabilities of every major fleet. In the galaxy within hours, humanity would achieve total military dominance without engaging in direct combat. The implications were staggering beyond belief. While the galaxy's species competed for resources and territory, humanity had quietly positioned itself to control all of them. Their apparent weakness, their small population, their limited territory, their reliance on diplomacy was actually their greatest strength. No one perceived them as a threat until it was far too late. We must consider, Prime Sage Valdris said, carefully that humanity may not fully comprehend their own potential. Our psychological analyses suggest they view their actions as defensive rather than aggressive. They may genuinely believe they are protecting galactic civilization rather than conquering it. This possibility was almost more frightening than deliberate malice. A species that had achieved near-total galactic dominance, while genuinely believing they were heroes, was capable of justifying almost any action. History was filled with civilizations that had committed atrocities in the name of peace and progress. The debate continued for hours as each council member weighed the evidence and considered possible responses. Direct military action against humanity would trigger the very conflicts they sought to prevent. Economic sanctions would be meaningless against a species that effectively controlled galactic trade. Diplomatic protests would be ignored by civilizations that viewed humans as their protectors and saviors. The question becomes, Architect Primus said, whether we intervene now to prevent a potential catastrophe or wait to see how humanity uses the power they have accumulated. Elder Koros consulted more historical records. Previous interventions against emerging hegemonic powers have resulted in galactic wars lasting centuries. However, non-intervention has led to periods of stagnation or oppression lasting millennia. The choice was ultimately between risking immediate chaos or accepting long-term subjugation. Both options carried enormous costs for galactic civilization, but the Council's mandate was clear. They had been established specifically to prevent any single species from achieving the kind of dominance humanity now possessed. Recommendation: Graduated Disclosure. Commander Apex announced after completing its analysis. We reveal humanity's activities to selected species, monitor their reactions, and calibrate our response based on the results. The synthetic minds had calculated the optimal approach with cold precision. Rather than exposing everything at once, they would carefully leak information to specific governments that were most likely to take action. The proud Craxians would be outraged by evidence of manipulation. The paranoid Zentari would react strongly to proof of technological theft. The militaristic species would unite against a common threat. The disclosure process must be carefully managed, Prime Sage Valdris warned. If we move too quickly, we risk creating the very chaos we seek to prevent. If we move too slowly, humanity may detect our activities and accelerate their own timeline. The vote was unanimous in favor of graduated disclosure. Within days, carefully chosen leaders throughout the galaxy would receive intelligence packages detailing humanity's covert activities. The species most likely to react strongly would learn that their trusted human allies had been manipulating them for decades. As the council members prepared to leave, each carrying the weight of a decision that would reshape galactic civilization, none of them detected the microscopic monitoring device that had recorded every word of their deliberations. Dr. Emma Price had been correct to increase surveillance in the core worlds, but she had made one crucial error in her calculations. She had underestimated how far the Ascendancy Council's influence extended, and how sophisticated their own counterintelligence capabilities had become. The device that recorded their meeting was not human technology, it was a quantum recorder that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously, making it virtually undetectable by conventional means. But humanity's network was more extensive than even the Council had realized. The quantum recorder transmitted its data through dimensional frequencies that human scientists had learned to monitor during their studies of Voidwalker technology. Within hours, the complete transcript of the Council's meeting was being analyzed in the underground facilities beneath Geneva. The revelation would come as the Council planned, but humanity would not be unprepared for it. The galaxy was about to learn that their peaceful mediators were actually the most successful predators in known history. The question was whether that knowledge would unite them against human dominance or simply make them more eager to secure human protection against each other. In 48 hours, the careful balance of power that had maintained galactic stability for 3 decades would be shattered forever. The age of human deception was about to end. But the age of human control was just beginning. The emergency broadcasts began simultaneously across 43 star systems, each message carefully crafted to maximize shock and outrage among its intended recipients. On the Craxian homeworld, War Chief Gorth stared at detailed intelligence files that documented 30 years of human manipulation, his massive claws digging furrows in the metal surface of his command table. The evidence was undeniable and comprehensive. Every trade agreement his empire had signed with human mediation contained hidden clauses that benefited humanity. Every territorial dispute resolved by human peacekeepers had resulted in borders that served human strategic interests. Even the recent conflict over the quantum crystal mining rights had been orchestrated from beginning to end by human intelligence operatives. They made us dance like hatchlings, Gorth snarled to his assembled generals. Every victory we thought we had won was part of their plan. Every compromise we accepted was designed to make us weaker while making them stronger. Similar scenes played out throughout the galaxy as species after species discovered the truth about their human allies. The Zentari Confederation learned that their most trusted consultants were industrial spies who had stolen centuries of technological development. The aquatic hydrants realized that their marine biology partners had mapped every military installation in their vast oceans. The nomadic wanderers found out that their navigation specialists had betrayed the locations of secret supply caches that had kept them independent for millennia, but the galaxy's reaction was not what the Ascendancy Council had predicted. On Earth, President Angela Ross reviewed the crisis reports with remarkable calm as she sat in the Oval Office. The walls displayed real-time updates from across the galaxy, showing the reactions of dozens of species to the intelligence revelations. Her advisors had expected panic, demands for explanations, possibly even declarations of war. Instead, they were witnessing something far more unexpected. How many species have formally withdrawn from human-mediated agreements? Ross asked her Chief of Staff. General Marcus Webb consulted his tactical displays before responding. 3. Minor powers have recalled their ambassadors. The Beltar Confederacy has suspended our cultural exchange program, but the major players are requesting private meetings to renegotiate terms. Dr. Emma Price, now openly acknowledged as the head of human intelligence operations, added her analysis. The psychological profiles were accurate. Most species are more impressed than outraged. They're viewing us as the most successful political operators in galactic history, not as villains who betrayed their trust. This was the crucial miscalculation the Ascendancy Council had made. They had assumed that exposing humanity's deception would unite the galaxy against them. Instead, it had revealed something far more disturbing about galactic civilization. Competence was valued more highly than honesty, and results mattered more than methods. The Craxian Empire, despite Gorth's initial fury, was among the first to request diplomatic contact. Within 72 hours of receiving the intelligence package, War Chief Gorth himself had traveled to Earth for a private meeting with President Ross. "Your species played a dangerous game," Gorth said as they faced each other in the secure conference room beneath the White House. "You made us believe we were equals when you were always the dominant predators in every interaction." Ross leaned forward, studying the massive reptilian warrior whose species prided itself on martial honor above all else. "War Chief, did our manipulations cost Craxian lives? Did our interventions weaken your empire or reduce your territory?" Gorth was silent for several long moments, his yellow eyes reflecting inner conflict. "No, our territory has expanded by 30%. Our military has grown stronger through access to advanced technologies. Our economy has prospered through trade agreements that we thought we had negotiated ourselves." "Then perhaps," Ross said carefully, "the relevant question is not whether we influenced galactic events, but whether that influence served your people's interests as well as our own." It was a masterful reframing that transformed deception into sophisticated leadership. Rather than denying the manipulation, humanity was presenting it as evidence of their superior strategic thinking. They had not conquered the galaxy through force, they had guided it through intelligence and foresight toward greater prosperity and stability. The Zentari Confederation's response was even more revealing. High Counselor Vex arrived on Earth with a proposal that stunned even the human leadership team. "We want to formalize our cooperation with your intelligence network," Vex announced during the closed session with Ross and her advisors. "Not as subjects or junior partners, but as equals who can contribute our own capabilities to your operations." General Webb exchanged significant glances with Dr. Price. They had prepared for anger, demands for reparations, even military threats. They had not expected requests for partnership from the galaxy's most technologically advanced civilization. "Counselor," Price said carefully, "such cooperation would require complete transparency about your military capabilities, economic resources, and political structures. Are you prepared for that level of integration?" Vex's compound eyes reflected what humans interpreted as amusement. "Dr. Price, after reviewing your intelligence files, we understand that you already possess most of that information. We are simply proposing to make the relationship official and mutually beneficial." The pattern repeated itself across the galaxy with remarkable consistency. Species after species, upon learning the full scope of human capabilities, chose pragmatic accommodation over moral outrage. The Villani requested human advisors to help modernize their governmental systems. The Threx Coalition asked for assistance in developing new trade routes that would benefit both their species and humanity. Even the notoriously paranoid Solarans approached humanity with offers of technological exchange. The few species that did react with genuine hostility found themselves increasingly isolated. The Beltar Confederacy's attempt to organize a resistance coalition gained minimal support. Most civilizations were too busy negotiating better terms with humanity to join a movement based on principles rather than practical benefits. Within 6 months, the galaxy had accepted a fundamental shift in power relationships. Humanity was no longer pretending to be simple peacekeepers. They were openly acknowledged as the dominant political force in galactic civilization, but a benevolent one whose leadership had produced unprecedented peace and prosperity. The transformation was completed when the Galactic Council voted to restructure itself with humanity in a formal leadership role. President Ross addressed the assembled delegates from a podium that was now elevated above all others, symbolizing the new hierarchy. For 30 years, we have worked to maintain stability and promote cooperation throughout the galaxy, Ross began. We have made mistakes, and we have operated in secrecy when transparency might have served everyone better. But we have also prevented wars, facilitated trade, and promoted understanding between species that might otherwise have remained eternal enemies. She paused, looking out at representatives from dozens of worlds who had once viewed humanity as helpful mediators. The question before us today is not whether humanity has influenced galactic affairs, but whether that influence has benefited all of our civilizations. The evidence suggests it has. Armed conflicts are at historic lows. Interspecies trade has increased by 400%. Technological advancement has accelerated across all major civilizations. The vote to formalize humanity's leadership role was overwhelming, 41 species in favor, 3 opposed, and 2 abstaining. The margin of victory demonstrated how completely the galaxy had accepted the new reality. Elder Koros of the Ascendancy? Council watched the proceedings from the observer gallery, his ancient mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. The elder being had seen the rise and fall of dozens of galactic civilizations, but humanity's ascension was unlike anything in recorded history. They had achieved hegemony not through conquest but through demonstrated competence. Not through fear but through consistently beneficial results. Architect Primus, Koros communicated privately to his fellow council member, we may have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of human ambition. Explained, came the response across dimensional frequencies. We assumed they were predators, disguised as peacekeepers. It appears they are actually peacekeepers who happen to be perfectly evolved predators. The distinction may be crucial for understanding what comes next. As humanity formally assumed its role as the acknowledged leader of galactic civilization, the greatest irony was that they had achieved exactly what they had always claimed to want: a stable, prosperous, peaceful galaxy. They had simply been more honest about the methods required to achieve those goals than anyone else had been willing to admit. The day the galaxy learned that humans were not peacekeepers marked not the end of human influence, but the beginning of a new era where effective leadership was valued above comfortable illusions. The age of manipulation through deception had ended, but the age of control through acknowledged competence had begun. And in the vast reaches of unexplored space, other civilizations that had not yet encountered humanity would soon discover what the known galaxy now understood. When humans offered to help solve your problems, they delivered remarkable results. But the price was always your independence. The question was whether that price was worth paying for the benefits of joining the most successful galactic civilization in known history.